Good afternoon, everybody, on this beautiful day in Toronto. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm so delighted to have the opportunity to speak to fellow anti-war peace activists who have summoned the courage to publicly condemn what our government and the military alliance in which it has ensnared us are doing to this world. And I've come here today to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, and I have absolutely no hesitation in saying this, that NATO is a mafia, and that is the Godfather, right over there. NATO is a protection racket. Its purpose is to enrich and empower the U.S. military-industrial complex. We are told something that is detached from reality. We're told that this thing actually exists to make us more secure. Are we actually made more secure by the fact that there are ever expanding limits of NATO boundaries moving up to the borders of a nuclear-armed state? And this is being done by an alliance which has established beyond a shadow of a doubt that it is aggressive in nature. Who are they kidding? This is a defensive alliance. This alliance collectively spent before the Ukraine war, after which defense spending, so-called defense spending, is skyrocketing in the West, $1.2 trillion a year. Collectively, that was NATO military spending. These supposedly aggressive adversaries of the NATO military alliance, namely Russia and China, spend less than 30% annually of what NATO spends. The United States itself has approximately 800 foreign military bases. China has 1. Russia has less than 20. Who is ringing the country? We've all seen the maps. We see where the military bases are. We see where NATO has deployed its military assets. And we more or less know where the major military assets of the Russian Federation and China are situated. Anybody with an ounce of objectivity and a functioning brain can see who's the aggressor. As was mentioned by prior speakers, this supposedly defensive military alliance left Libya in smoking ruins. It left Syria in smoking ruins. It destroyed Iraq. The leader of that military alliance, the United States, and its British lapdog, left that country in smoking ruins. We were told that they were going into Afghanistan, in part to free the women of the terrible oppression of the Taliban there. Who's in power now? And what happened during the 20 years that this supposedly defensive military alliance was ensconced in Afghanistan? They were propping up a brutally anti-democratic narco dictatorship. And the reason why it fell so quickly is because nobody in Afghanistan, virtually nobody, supported that supposedly democratic regime. It was the contrary, the antithesis of everything that we in the West purport to defend. That's what NATO is about. NATO is an aggressive military alliance. It is a protection racket, and we are being robbed blind. Not only are we spending too much money on the military, but in addition, much of this money is just outright graft and theft. Military contractors are selling us products that are grossly overrated and grotesquely overpriced, and that in fact are not making us safer, are not what they are built to be, and ultimately what we're seeing is an impoverishment of the programs that are necessary to the well-being of our people at the expense of this protection racket. We have hundreds of thousands of people in this country that are homeless or near homeless, millions of people, millions of children living in poverty in this country. We have a deteriorating healthcare system in this country. We have a climate crisis that is spiraling out of control, and this war is a major source of emissions, and we should be committing our public funds to the maximum degree possible to transition to a renewable energy economy. All of these massive amounts of public money are being diverted to a war that is going to end in the destruction of Ukraine, the very people that our governments purport to want to defend. They will be destroyed by this conflict, even if that's your only priority is to protect Ukrainian life, which is and should be a priority of our government. You should oppose the escalation of this war because it's going to end in the destruction of Ukraine. And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, the NATO alliance doesn't care. It doesn't care that this will ultimately end in the destruction of Ukraine because this was never about the protection of the Ukrainian people. This was always about weakening a geopolitical rival. The Americans have no desire to have a negotiation about peace because it thwarts their ultimate objective. Their ultimate objective is to kill as many Russians as possible, to destabilize the Russian state, and to set the groundwork for the return of somebody, some, let's say, drunken, incompetent buffoon like Boris Yeltsin, who will do the bidding of the US government. Not act in the interests of the Russian people, and certainly not act in the interests of humanity at large. Let's be real here, friends. If we can agree on anything, whatever you may think of the Russian Federation, whatever you may think about this invasion, we should at least be able to agree that NATO doesn't give a damn about human rights, democracy, and international law. It astonishes me, saddens me deeply that some people who characterize themselves as leftists and progressives and anti-imperialists seem to be drinking now an abundance of NATO Kool-Aid, so much so that they've become drunk on it, and they actually believe, they seem to believe, that the objective of this war and the constant escalation of it is to protect the interests of Ukrainians. Our brothers and sisters in Ukraine are being used as cannon fodder. And people who know this and who have the temerity to say it publicly are being excluded from the mainstream media discussion. Despite all of that, think about this for one moment. A poll just came out 2 weeks ago which showed that over 50% of Canadians believe we are headed towards nuclear war. Over 50% of Canadians. Why aren't there millions of people in the streets? How is it possible that over half the people in this country think we're headed towards nuclear war, and let there be no doubt that we are, and yet they aren't in the streets demanding that this war be brought to an end by any and all peaceful means necessary? You, my friends, are the vanguard of that movement. Because you have the courage to come out here today, you're creating a public space for this absolutely essential discussion, a discussion on which our very survival depends. We are the tip of the rhetorical spear. Those of us who are coming out here today, others will follow us. The false narratives are deteriorating. NATO is in disarray. Its days are numbered. And the best thing that we can do to serve our fellow human beings is to hasten its demise. It must be brought to an end. It is killing this planet. It is killing democracy. It is imperiling the future of our children. Thank you, my friends.